Good afternoon, students. I'm your didactics and learning support in economics tutor. My name is Gertrude Namando. My cell phone number is available to you, and I'm only to be conducted until 7 o'clock. My email address is also provided on the screen, as well as my qualification for your interest. The purpose of this presentation, number one, is to highlight the key areas in this module. And then mostly I want to improve and strengthen our responses to question papers. It can be questions regardless assignments. It can be questions regardless examination. I'll be touching on the examination expectation, as well as the importance of studying the whole module. Okay, some of the main highlights that I'm going to touch, and by now we know that as students it's very important that you study your whole module. Look at your objectives at the beginning of the subject. It's very important. Don't just focus on what I'm going to present, but present study the whole module. Okay, number one, we are going to look at the features of a good economic lesson. Okay, talking of the economic lesson content, as a teacher, when you are presenting, what are the features? In other words, features, another name is characteristics. Okay, one of the key areas is to follow your syllabus. When you are making a presentation on economics, a syllabus is very important. That is your guide. Okay? And then as from there, when you follow your syllabus, is divided into topics. So you look at the relevant topic. When you are presenting, you go according to the syllabus topic, and then you look at the relevant topic. It's very important that you engage learners. Okay? What do we mean by engaging learners? As an economic teacher, it's very important that you engage your learners. We are talking of learner-centered education. So engaging learners means learners should be able to answer questions that are posted by the teacher. Learners should be able to write notes. Learners should be able to do homework and class activities and project. So that is the engagement that we are talking about. And then it's very important that you ensure that your lesson plan is visual. By visual, we mean when you are teaching learners, when they see, they are likely to remember that topic for a longer period of time. So as a teacher, it's very important, don't just write notes on the board, but it's very much important that you present using visual. Visual can be PowerPoint presentations. Visual can be posters that are related to a subject. Visual can be topics on newspapers that are related to the subject. And it's very much important that we use clear vocabularies, okay? So as a teacher, it's very important, if you are teaching learners and then you are there using bombastic vocabularies and they don't understand, learning is not taking place. So a good teacher always comes down to the level of the learners, okay? If they are subjects, as a teacher, you start by the definition. When you are using vocabularies, you explain to the learners, what does that vocabulary mean? How does it relate to the topic that you are presenting? And then discipline, it's very important. As a teacher, it's very important that you maintain discipline in your classroom. As we know, we have learners coming from different backgrounds. We have slow learners, we have fast learners. So by discipline, I'm talking about noise making. It's very much important that as a teacher, you don't allow noise so that learning will be able to take place. Discipline, I'm talking of learners coming on time to your class, learners coming on time to school. Discipline, I'm talking about respect, not only respecting the teacher, but respecting the other learners also. Discipline, I'm talking about rules. As a teacher, you must have rules in your classroom to maintain discipline. And we need to be gender sensitive, okay? So gender sensitive, I'm talking about, we have male, we have female in the children. So gender sensitive, as a teacher, if you are a female teacher, your focus must not just be on female learners. You must also consider the male students. There are topics that are sensitive to learners. Like, for example, in our country now, we don't just have male and female learners in the classroom. We also have learners that call themselves transgender. So as a teacher, you need to be sensitive to these learners. You don't go about mentioning that, how it's not good. Gender sensitive, we are talking about religion. So as a teacher, you need to be a role model in all angles. Motivation is very important. And remember, as a teacher, there is positive motivation and there is negative motivation. So the learners that are doing well in economics, you motivate them either by giving them money, either by just telling them thank you, either by buying them stationeries that are related to economics. And then remember, negative motivation, we are saying you are trying to discipline a learner by discouraging them from doing the same behaviors. Learners that are making noise, that day that the learner is quiet, try to give them something. In a way, you are trying to motivate them so that they stay quiet at all times. And we move on to the second objective. Suggest some ways in which the economic teacher could help to raise funds for the school. As an economic teacher, fundraising is also part of our curriculum. As we know, it's free education, but we know the school need to fundraise to make money. So as an economic teacher, it's very important that you start a tuck shop at school. If there is no tuck shop, an economic teacher must start a tuck shop at school where you'll be selling to learners. So in this way, you are generating money for the school. Or cake sales. In terms, some of the schools have already someone that is running the tuck shop. You can arrange days, certain days, where you ask parents to bring cakes and then you sell to generate money for school. We can have like an entrepreneurship day, like you encourage learners to create their own craft. So here they are using their skills, whatever they are good at. If they are good at painting, they paint. If they are good at beadwork, they make necklace, they make earrings, so that on this day they come and sell this to generate money for the school. And sporting activities, you organize sport activities where schools are competing with other schools, and then in the meantime, selling and buying is taking place. This is also a way of fundraising money for the school. And then also, remember local businesses. It's very important that local businesses, they give back to the community. So in this way, as a teacher, you can write donation letters to local businesses so that they can help the school. It can either be with monetary terms, it can either be buying desks for the school, it can either be fencing the school, it can either be providing uniform to needy learners or soccer kit. So all these are ways that the economic teachers can use to fundraise money for the school. But don't just be limited to this. Remember, a teacher must be creative, a teacher must be innovative. You use the resources that are available. Name 10 steps to correct the underachiever learners. As I mentioned earlier, there are different types of learners in a classroom. We have got fast learners. They are determined. They work on their own, and in most cases, they don't need direction. And then we have what we call slow learners. From slow learners is where you get the type of underachiever learners. If we are talking of underachiever, we are talking of a learner who is not able to meet the basic competency. We are talking of learners who don't make it in tests, they are failing tests. We are talking of learners that are failing examination. Those are what we call underachievers. And remember, nowadays in Namibia, we are talking of inclusive education. So how can the teacher help these learners that are not performing? In number one, you need to make sure that the learners are prepared and they do the test. In most cases, underachievers, as a teacher, when you are giving a test, they don't come to school because they know, even if I come to school and write that test, I'm going to fail. So as a teacher, it's very important that you prepare this learner. In most cases, education, like they say, teaching is a profession, okay? So in most cases, a teacher makes a sacrifice to see these underachievers after school, and then you teach them one by one on their level, okay? By this, you are preparing them for the test. You need to make sure that these learners, in most cases, they don't do their classwork or they don't do their homework. So as a teacher, you make sure that they are involved. When you are writing notes, you make sure they are copying the notes. When you give a homework or class activity, either they understand or they don't understand, you need to make sure they do the work, and then you help them from there. And then you need to maintain conduct between home and school. Nowadays, teaching is quite challenging as the parent community is not involved, okay? And in most cases, the parents don't come forward. So, as a teacher, it's very important that if you pick that these learners are underachievers, find the contact number of a parent. If you find out that this learner does not do homework or classwork, find the number of the parent, call the parents immediately so that at least the learner knows that if I don't do my homework or class activity, the teacher contact my parents and they'll start taking their work seriously. And it's very much important that we encourage, because in most cases we find out that it's not that these learners do not want to do their homework, but in true sense they cannot read, okay? So as a teacher, it's very much important that you encourage reading. Ask the learners not to less the TV time, video, computer games, and internet. There must be a balance between schoolwork and these activities. And then a teacher can also help, because a teacher, you are not home, you can tell the parents so they can help you to monitor the learners at home. And like for example, we are also having sport. As a teacher, we must take into consideration that it's not all the learners that are academic. Therefore, as a teacher, if you see that learners are not academic, encourage extramural activities like sport. We are talking of soccer. We are talking of music. We are talking of all this. You might find that if a school introduces some of these clubs, the learners would want to come to school and learn because they want to be part of certain clubs. So that is what teachers can use to help the underachiever learners. Explain 5 important ways of assessing a practical coursework. Okay, remember, as a teacher, there are also projects that are involved. And in most cases, when we are giving project to learners, we want to assess their practical skills in class. Okay, So practical skills can be, learners should be able to interpret data, learners should be able to create graphs. You want the learners to gain confidence in this area. So as a teacher, what you can do in economics, you can, when, for example, we are teaching demand and supply. So the demand and supply, as a teacher, it's very important that you don't just teach the theory, but you ask the learners to draw a demand and a supply graph. This is the practical work that we are talking about in economics. You are asking learners to go and, like, for example, to start their own businesses. They think of an idea, they think of a type of a business they want to start, and then you ask learners to go and do a market research in their community. When they do this market research, how many customers are interested in buying their product? How many customers are not interested in buying their product? At the same time, you can ask learners to draw a bar graph or a line graph to present their information. This is the practical work that we are talking about. You are asking learners to go to the business community to find out how does demand and supply work. By giving them this scenario, it's practical work because they go and interview the business people to find out this. Exchange rate. This is the type of practical work that we are talking about. And a practical coursework, we are saying it allows the educator to obtain feedback whether the learners understood the concept that you taught. Like I said, when you give learners this homework, there is no way that one learner will copy another learner's graph, because each one must draw information based on their presentation. So as an educator, you are getting feedback. This feedback will be able to tell you, do the learners understand the topic, or they still need further explanation on the topic. And then we are also talking about such activities allow, in a way, it's also keeping the fast learners busy, because in class, if you are just teaching theory, the fast learners, they get bored. So at times when you bring in practical activities, it's like you are challenging them to do more, and they'll be willing to go an extra mile. And then as the fast learners are doing this experiment, at the same time as a teacher, you have the time in class now to work with slow learners or learners that are needing extra help. PowerPoint is very important. Remember, we are moving from traditional education. We are moving to education that requires teachers to be innovative. And one of the innovative ways in education is the teachers that are using PowerPoint presentations. Like what we are doing now, it's PowerPoint. Now the question is, what are the advantages of PowerPoint? PowerPoint, the lesson of a PowerPoint it's very much interesting, because there you have got a combination of multimedia. It allows you to display your text. At the same time, the subject, the text that you are teaching for that certain day, it allows you to bring videos where learners can watch and see, and then you can bring in animation. It's different pictures that will be able to catch the learner's attention. So that is one of the advantage. So learners who are being taught through PowerPoint, sometimes they are able to capture the information more fast than learners that are just given notes on the traditional board. And we are talking of, if you have PowerPoint, you can get access to resources, different resources. So nowadays, if you are teaching at a village, is no longer an excuse that learners don't know certain ways, certain topics, because a teacher can Google the pictures of different businesses. A teacher can Google, and then what you are talking about, you will be able to show the learners that nowadays with PowerPoint, learners don't have to go for excursions anymore. They'll be able to see the information through the internet. And then editing, one advantage is editing. The moment sometimes you just typed and you didn't get time to read through, a learner can say, ma'am, there's a word missing, or there's words that are repeating. As a teacher, you can immediately edit, erase what is not needed, and then you can add what is needed. And then distribution. Nowadays, as a teacher, when learners, like there are certain schools that are ahead that allow learners to bring tablets to school. So in a way, you don't have to make copies. Immediately, your presentation, you can distribute it to your learners. It's either by sending them emails or them giving you USB so that they can be able to get the notes. And then by this, we are talking of low cost, because if you send notes by email or by USB, you are saving cost of printing, copy work, and all that. So those are some of the advantages of a PowerPoint presentation. And then we move on to disadvantages of PowerPoint. So we are saying there is a lack of interactivity. So we are saying sometimes there is no longer interaction. Like we all know, COVID introduced us to different ways of teaching, whereby learners were on lockdown and then the teachers were teaching from home. So you just present the information. Like what I'm doing now, this is the example of interactive method that I'm talking about. When I present this PowerPoint presentation, learners will be able to later watch this video, but there is no interaction. You cannot post questions on what you don't understand through my presentation. So that is what I'm saying. Sometimes there is no interactive method with PowerPoint presentation. And this requires brightness. We are saying there must be enough light in the room, and we are also saying when you are doing PowerPoint, the room must kind of be in a dark way. I remember as a teacher because our school doesn't have projectors, so just to be ahead as a teacher, I bought a projector. But then now, the challenge when I bought that projector, the first challenge, there was so much light in the classroom that was coming from the windows. So as a teacher, again, I needed to buy curtains for my class so that the room is at least dark. So that can be some of the challenges when it comes to PowerPoint. And then distraction. There can be distraction with your PowerPoint. Learners are watching videos, for example, and remember there are some of the schools that are having this electronic bell system. Learners are watching a video, now and then someone is announcing through the intercom. Those are types of distractions that we are talking about. And then we move on. Identify 8 syllabus skills that an economic teacher should be able to develop in learners. There are some of the syllabus skills. The syllabus skills, we are talking of communication skill. As a teacher, you need to empower your learners to be able to communicate with other people. Numeracy skills, we are talking of counting. Learners must be able to add figures. Information skills, we are talking of. Learners must be able to go and search for information at home. You give them projects, you give them homework, they must go and search for more information. You give them topic to present, they must be able to go and search for more information. And then at the same time, we are also talking of social and cooperative skills. As I said, you find 40 students nowadays in class or 35. So those learners, you need to teach them to cooperate with one another. Like for example, as a teacher, you give group works. And then you might, in group works, there are always problems where learners don't want to cooperate. They are supposed to distribute who's finding which information. They come together with the information, who must get the poster and all that, who's going to present. So in most cases, you find learners don't want to cooperate. And if there are certain learners that don't want to cooperate in that presentation, and then it's a failure on the side of the presentation. Analyze the elements of culture of learning in a school, in your classroom. So when we are talking of culture, we are talking of ways. As a teacher, how can you ensure that your classroom is fun? How can you ensure that learners are enjoying the subject that you are teaching? In number one, we need to make learning fun. Okay? So learning, we understand learners must pass at the end of the day. But as a teacher, if you are very strict, if there is no fun taking place in your lesson, learners will not enjoy your lesson, and then at the end of the day, they are going to fail. Okay, so you must look at, as a teacher, you must have patience in your subject. Like subject like economics are part of commerce, and the learners are not interested in this type of subject. But as a teacher, when you are passionate about the subject, when you love the subject, you are going to pass on the excitement to the learners, and they'll also start loving the subject. Try to do fun activities in your class. Don't just write on the board. Come up with games where it's a game, but in a way students are learning. Take them outside. It's outside, it's like you are playing a game, but at the same time, learning is taking place. It's very important that you allow your learners to be independent. How I do this in my lesson, I allocate, it's not every day that I'm teaching, but I allocate different topics to learners. And then these learners, as they are presenting, you are making them to be independent because they went to search more information on the topic, and then they are presenting. In a way, you are motivating them. You are making them to be competent. And then as a teacher, don't just, we are talking of learner-centered education, you must just act as a facilitator. Learners are presenting, they look for their own information, and after the presentation as a teacher, you just emphasize on their presentation. By that you are facilitating. Create trust and respect. As a teacher, if you want the learners to respect you, you must start respecting them first. You must start trusting them first, and then they'll do the same. But if you want respect but you don't respect your learners, they will not respect you. You don't want to be insulted, but you are insulting the learners. You are not creating a form of respect in your classroom. What are the guidelines of an effective classroom? When we are talking of an effective classroom, we are talking of layout, we are talking of seating arrangement. When we are talking of learner-centered education, when anyone passes through your door, the seating arrangement must be displaying group work. And then you know when learners are seated in groups, so that one we are talking of effective classroom. And then physical condition, make sure that your class is safe. The light, we are talking of lighting, we are talking of ventilation, we are talking of the class being clean at all times. And then there must be order and discipline. I already emphasized this at the beginning. Motivation of workers. I emphasize this. And then we must be able to praise our learners. We must be able to reward our learners. And then we must criticize negative behavior so that they can all move to the good behavior side, and then they pass the subject. We move on to globalization. Okay? So as we know, globalization, nowadays with internet, we are talking of global world. Okay? We are talking of a world as one unit because of globalization. Now, if we look at the positive consequences and negative consequences, positive, some people say positive, some people say advantages. So what are the good things about globalization? Okay, globalization increase awareness of events that are happening far from us. So with globalization, when you watch BBC, when you watch news, you'll be able to know what is happening in other countries. You'll be able to go on internet. If you are talking of stock exchange, if we are talking about currency, you can be able to go to internet and then you find out currency on the other, what is American currency, what is the Namibian currency. And then globalization, we are talking of variety of goods and services. Nowadays, we are no longer limited to buy goods from Namibia, but you can order goods through internet. And then prices are competitive. Nowadays, because of globalization, many people have access to goods and services. And then now we are saying there is no longer monopoly. People are competing. And then we look at the negative aspect. Negative aspects, we are talking of the consequences. Okay? So one of them is the spreading of the economic problem is one of them. Like, for example, if there is a recession with this globalization, and then all the countries in the world, they are affected. If one country is in trouble with their economy, and then the rest of their world, we are affected, either by the prices of the goods going down, or either they are going up. And then we are talking of environment. We all know this air pollution and everything. If one of the countries is practicing this, we are all affected by this. So these are some climate change. These are some of the disadvantages of globalization. And then we are talking of study methods. What are the study methods that can be used? Is flashcard. As a learner, when you are studying, you can make flashcard, just summarizing topics and then what you understand by that. You can read and reread your information. You summarize, you read out loud, you are making notes. Those are study methods. The common learning difficulties in the Namibian secondary schools. Difficulties in interpreting data. Like I said, you are asking learners to do graph, but there are some of the learners that cannot draw graphs. This is one of the difficulties. Lack of background knowledge with economic concept. Because the learners are not introduced to this concept, sometimes when you give project or class activities, learners cannot do the work because they don't have the subject, they don't have the background, they don't have the right vocabularies when it comes to economics. And then difficulties in interpreting questions. Most of the learners, they don't fail because they don't know, but it's a way of interpreting questions. They don't know the key words. If the question is saying list and explain, the learner just lists, and then they are losing out marks on explanation. So these are some of the 5 barriers that are experienced by the learners. And then you evaluate why money is a powerful motivator. Okay? So by this, I want you students to go and read about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. what are they saying about money? Remember, most of the people, when they go to work, money is the main motivator. Because remember, when you have money, going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can be able to afford your basic needs. When you have money, you can be able to move on and get the friends that are in the same place of yours. So go and read further on this. And then as a teacher, when you are explaining concept to students, you need to make sure that your concept is clear. You need to speak as loud as possible. You need to keep eye contact with your learners to make sure they are focused on your lesson. And then the language that you are using with your learners, it must be at their same level. And clarify how to get a grade 12 volunteer to act as a teacher, and then explain what determines the price. Okay, so here it's like when we are presenting, we are encouraging learners to volunteer. It's either a learner coming in front or learners are nominated by the other learners to come and explain the concept of demand and supply, and then they are drawing graphs. I've dwelled more on this on the earlier chapters. Analyze which of the syllabus aim of this subject should be emphasized in this section about income and expenditure. We all know income is the money earned or money received, and then expenditure, a business need to spend on a day-to-day basis. Remember, like I said, to make money, you need to spend. So those are expenditures. And then design a board layout for teaching about factors that are causing unemployment. Okay, what is causing unemployment? In number one, we are having seasonal unemployment. Remember, we only have certain businesses that are only operating season. People that grow grapes doesn't grow in all the season, but there is a certain season. So the moment that the grape season is over, so that means those workers will be unemployed, waiting for the next season. We are talking of technology. Most of the factories, they are buying machines. If they buy machines and then they have to let go of some of the workers, that is what is causing unemployment. And then explain how the economic teacher can develop self-directed learning. Okay? So self-directed learning is an environment where learners will be able to do the presentation. So as a teacher, you need to make sure that the environment is safe for such learners. By doing what? By protecting that learner when they are presenting from the other learners. And then also, you need to make sure that learners engage in debates that are constructive. If debates are getting personal about the subject, as a teacher, you must come in and support. You must encourage peer support where learners are teaching. Learners, fast learners, you allocate them to slow learners. And at the same time, you need to make sure that there is friendship in a classroom. You need to ensure that there is friendship in a classroom. And then we allow natural consequences to operate. When we are talking of natural experience, we are talking of learners helping one another. Learners have to treat one another with love in the classroom. Learners must not condemn other workers or other students. Because with if learners, like for example, as a teacher, what I have observed, when learners are doing class presentation, in class, like I said, you find a mixture of learners. But when other learners are presenting, the learners just know that that one is slow, that one is speaking broken English. So when such a learner stand up to present, other learners are laughing, they wait for the learner to break that English and then they laugh. So as a teacher, you must condemn and this and such behavior. At most time you try to discourage it. And then you must boost the confidence of learners when they are presenting, make them welcome, make them feel free. Okay, as I said, learners, when you are preparing for your 3 examination, don't just focus on what I presented. It's very important that you look at the objective of your subject, go through all the objectives of the subject, because these slides, they are just helping you in all the preparation of your 3 subjects. From my side, I'm wishing you well in your study at IOL. Remember, hard work pays off. If we want to pass, we need to put effort. And from the past, what I have realized, students, they wait for the exam to study and they don't master all the content. Please start now mastering 1 unit per day. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day and have a blessed exams when that time comes.